Hello everyone, welcome to Skidoo's Garage. Today we're making a video about basic hand tools I believe every adult needs. This is going to be pretty simple. I don't get too in-depth with it, but these are just things that I've seen kind of in my travels that a lot of times, adults that haven't had exposure to using tools and things like that will be searching for terms that I just feel like adults should know. So I'm gonna just give you the terminology, basic uses for it, and you can kind of reference this video if you ever need a tool and you don't quite know what it's called, but you've seen it. So on the far left here is called a breaker bar. It's used basically to give you leverage on larger nuts and bolts when you're trying to remove them. It's really better for taking stuff off. That's why it's called a breaker bar, because you're breaking stuff loose. You might not want to use it too much when you are tightening up, because you could over tighten it. There's another tool called a torque wrench, which I'll actually bring out here in a minute, and it's really good for that. It gives you that extra length, that extra leverage to multiply your force. So then you have a ratchet in 1/2 inch size, which the breaker bar is also in 1/2 inch, and that is just for 1/2 inch sockets, which is the largest kind of common use size. You have 1/2 inch, and you have 3/8, and then you have 1/4 inch, and all of these are in imperial units. Don't ask me why. Freedom units, what is a kilometer, all that good stuff. So those are the differences between this is 1/2 inch, this is 3/8, and this is 1/4 inch, and it's all square drive to the matching ratchets, which I have there. And those are the most common sizes. 1/2 inch is for most of the bigger stuff. 3/8 is probably going to be your most common size. It gives you good leverage and good maneuverability in tighter spaces. And then 1/4 inch stuff is usually when you just have something that's smaller and you're working in a tight area. 1/4 inch is you can have crossover between all of them. Like you can have a let's use metric, like a 12 or 15 millimeter socket in 1/2 inch drive, in 3/8 drive, and in 1/4 inch drive. So it's really just, do I have enough space to use my largest one? Well, no. Well, do I have enough space to use my mid-size one? Yes, maybe no. Is this best to use the 1/4 inch? It gives you the flexibility to get into many more spaces if you have all three, and I do believe you should have all three, because you will encounter situations where the 1/2 inch won't fit in the space, the 3/8 won't fit in the space, but the 1/4 inch will. And to caveat, if you will, from my military days onto that, extensions give you even more versatility when it comes to fitting in spaces that you otherwise wouldn't with just your socket and your ratchet. They give you, like, transmissions, or if say a lot of manufacturers, for this is for automotive stuff, will put a hole, an access hole, but the socket isn't long enough. Well, you can just put an extension on it, and then you can access it through that hole. So extensions are very, very valuable, and they come in all sizes. This is a 1/2 inch one, this is a 1/4 inch one, of course this is a 3/8. It's imperative to have, I believe, for if you're really going to start working on stuff. And then a set of sockets, right? So sockets come, of course, in metric and imperial, depending on what you're working on. It could be metric or it could be imperial. I would say most of the stuff these days is going to metric, but definitely have you a set of imperial sockets, just even just this one small cheap set, because you're going to come across stuff that is definitely in imperial. So along with that, sockets come in many shapes and sizes. You can go to your hardware store or your auto parts store or online or Amazon. Having a set of longer sockets and a set of shorter sockets, just like extensions, will give you more versatility in places you can access when you are trying to loosen or tighten fasteners, whether that be a bolt or a nut. Now this tool here, this is probably one of my favorite tools that I own, because it gives you so much more ability to reach stuff that is off angle or around a corner or just in situations that is not normal. And this is called a swivel. This is an impact rated swivel, meaning I can put this on an impact driver or an air tool, and it will be able to handle the force and abuse put out by those tools. There are other types of swivel, and if you just Google swivel extension, you'll see you'll see ones that look like this, and you'll see ones that look more, it's hard to explain. They look like, I don't have any because they all broke, but they have two pivoting sections, and you might get a little more angle out of those type, but they are much weaker than these impact rated. And it's the same goes for sockets. So this is an impact rated socket. Usually they're matte black, and they're made out of different type of metal. I can't remember now, but the shinier ones, while you may get some impact use out of them, they are much more prone to break. So if you get into using power tools, definitely invest in a set of impact rated sockets. Now, don't quote me on this, and I'm not going to say that all the black sockets are impact rated. They usually are, but before you buy it, do your due diligence, check the packaging, and make sure that it says somewhere that they're impact rated, because they will break and they will shatter, and that's just a whole mess. You don't want that. So these are pretty much, if you have a set of sockets, a set of extensions, a set of wrenches, a breaker bar, you're in good shape as far as ratchets and sockets go. Next up, we'll deal with other types of hand tools, and we'll be back with that in a minute. All right, now we're moving on to wrenches, and wrenches are a lot simpler. So we're gonna talk about the adjustable wrenches here on the left first. Adjustable wrenches, they're great and they're not. They're great if you don't have a regular wrench and you don't have a plethora of wrenches, and you have stuff that you have to take off, and you have a lot of space to work on stuff, because as you can see, even the smallest one takes up much more size than a regular wrench. But there's some applications where these are great. I know plumbers and stuff use them a lot. Electricians sometimes. In the construction trade, you're probably going to use more of this, which is not kind of my area of expertise. I'm more of an automotive guy, and we don't use those too often. A lot of our stuff is kind of, hey, get the right size wrench and take it off. You'll round many less corners. And what I'm talking about when I say rounding is, so this is a specific size. It was, depending on the quality of the tool, it was made to fit a very specific size, and bolts are made to that same standard. Now, adjustable wrenches, what makes them great, is they can fit a very wide range of sizes, right? Well, the problem with that is it's not the exact size, and if you don't adjust this very carefully, you can have too much space in between the tool and the bolt or nut that you're trying to loosen, and that will cause the corners of that fastener to round over, and then they won't be very useful for a surface for the flats of these. And this is a 12 point. I have some 6 points somewhere, but it won't fit that standardized size anymore. You'll essentially change the size of the nut and fastener, and then it's much more difficult to take off. So these are good. You can get a lot of work done with the adjustables, but I think every adult should definitely have a good set of wrenches. Now, wrenches come in a lot of different flavors and a lot of different features depending on how much money you want to spend. So everyone should have a good set of just standard wrenches. Now, if you want to get fancy, you can get a set of ratcheting wrenches, which, I mean, they've been out for a long time. They're really great. So the inside, if this will ever focus, the inside actually ratchets around just like on a ratchet. These are called ratcheting wrenches. And, you know, it's reversible just like the other ones. And you can, you know, just put your torque on it and twist it. Where with these that do not move, you have to take it off the fastener to adjust it back, turn it, take it off, put it back on, and continue on like that. So I think everyone should have a regular set. If you have some extra money, definitely get you a good set of ratcheting wrenches. They're just as durable. I rarely have had one break, and you know, they do really good. Now, another thing I think everyone should have is a stubby wrench. And so both of these are 15 in size, but one is much shorter than the other, and that is just like the ratchets. It gives you more versatility in the area that you can get in and work. And they do make ratcheting wrenches in a stubby size, right? So you know, I've had sets and stuff like that, and they're wonderful. If you're working on stuff professionally, you know, it's kind of mandatory, but you know, if you're just working on stuff with your house, you know, you buy what you need, and you know, you'll know when you need it. So yeah, so that's basically wrenches. It's pretty simple. Again, I would get a set of metric and a set of imperial, and you know, just have them on hand and get you a good toolbox to go along with that. But yeah, now we'll deal with I think screwdrivers next. So we'll be right back with that. All right, so screwdrivers. Screwdrivers are probably the most widespread and versatile, and it's funny because I call these screwdrivers, but actually they're not all screwdrivers. So we'll say handheld implements. You know, I don't know what the right terminology for that is, but we'll go over what we got here. So we'll start with actual screwdrivers, right? So screwdrivers, you're gonna have two main types of tips, and this is the one when your dad told you to go get a screwdriver, and you say, which kind? So you're either going to have a flathead screwdriver or a Phillips. And each one of these has different sizes, and they're numbered. So, you know, you have a number 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, Phillips. And you have the same with the flathead. But that is what they look like. One versus the other, flathead versus Phillips. And they come in so many shapes, sizes, styles. You know, you have stubby, you have very small and fine tip with rotating for working on either eyeglasses or electronics and things like that. You have different types of drive tips. So you'll have Torx, which is a star looking one, and then you'll have square bits. Some of this stuff is the stuff that comes in those IKEA furniture that everyone hates putting together. So screwdrivers are very versatile. If you're just getting into it, I would recommend getting a set of flatheads, a set of Phillips, and then, you know, broaden your horizon. You'll come across the stuff. You got these, which is just, you know, a sharp pointy bit, and you'll be surprised. I mean, for scribing or for, I mean, you know, poking at holes and stuff or cleaning stuff off or whatever, you'll come to need. And you have these, you have ones that are 90 degrees like this, all kinds of stuff. And you know, you can build your toolbox up slowly over time. You know, you don't have to rush out and spend $10,000. I would definitely start with a good set of flathead and Phillips though. And then other types, once you get, is this is like a scraper. Sometimes I use this for cleaning off gasket material, or you know, just scraping off crust and rust and grease off of things that I'm trying to get clean, or you know, have stubborn deposits on there or whatever. And this is a chisel. Chisels are very versatile. It's a very sharp edge on it, and you have a striking face on the back. Now, a lot of woodworking use these, but there's other applications. Again, you know, chisels are kind of, you're in the woods a little, in the weeds a little bit when you get into using chisels, but when you need one, you'll know, and then you'll know what it's called. You can go out and get one. And this is a punch. So punches come in a lot of different sizes as far as the ending's concerned, and you strike them to knock out what's called roll pins or dials or other things like that. But anytime you need to, basically there'll be a hole with a piece of metal in it that is holding something affixed to another piece, and you will put this into the hole where that roll pin is or that dowel is, and you'll knock it out. They are a very specific use set for punches, but when you need one, you don't want to use one of your good screwdrivers or one of your other precision tools. You want to use a punch. You want to have the right tool for the job. So get a set of punches, and don't use your screwdrivers as punches. That's not good, and you will ruin them, and they won't last you as long. Taking care of your stuff is half the battle with tools. If you serve them right, they'll serve you right for a very long time. So that's basically it with screwdrivers. You'll kind of know which screwdriver works based on the head of whatever you're trying to take off, and the more screwdrivers you have, the more stuff you'll be able to work on. So that's pretty much it for screwdrivers. We'll do pliers next. Pliers are really good. Okay, so now we're going to talk about pliers. And pliers, actually, there's a wide variety of these as well. These aren't even some of the common ones. Like, this is kind of weird, but it's only locking pliers that I could put my hands on in the moment. But we'll start from left to right. So different types of pliers. These are called needle nose pliers. Pretty sure it's pretty obvious as why. These are very good for just general grasping of all kinds of small and maybe more fine materials or things that you might need to grab. Like, I use these to pull out like fuses a lot of times, or hose clamps, or just anything you need to get a little small grip on. Locking pliers, these are good when you need to grab something or an item that may be too big for another set of your pliers, but too small for another set of your pliers as well. These come in handy. It just gives you more versatility to grab a larger array of things, and that's basically what pliers for. It's giving your little meat mitts more metal mechanical grasp, so you can hold on to things much more firmly than you could with your regular old hands. So this is another type of plier. I guess these would just be considered a pair of pliers, a pair of straight pliers. I forgot these called lineman pliers. I forgot what these are called, but they're all pliers, just the type. But I would just say, if I just say give me a pair of pliers, this is probably what I'm thinking about here. These would be called channel locks. I'm sorry I didn't go over their name for obvious reasons, because of the channels. So channel locks. But yeah, these is just what I would consider just a regular old pair of pliers. So these, all right, so I know this has a funky looking nip to it, but the more interesting part, the more important part of these is this part. These are what people call vice grips. Vice grips is a brand. What are these? These are locking pliers, I believe is what the proper term for these are. And what's important about them is this nut you can screw, and it changes the amount that this opens. So as you can see, when I screw it, that opens more. And this is a weird looking one, but just imagine a regular pair of pliers with this apparatus on the back, right? So when you tighten the screw down, it tightens the initial set size, and then it gives you a wider variety of things you can then lock onto. Once that's locked on, it's not going to let go. So you can use pliers like this to hold a vast number of things together, and then when you need to release it, this little paddle right here, you press up on, and it springs open. These are very, very versatile tools. You definitely should have you a set of locking pliers or vice grips and in your toolbox. Then there are many types of cutters. I use this when I'm in the junkyard and I need to cut out a wiring harness on a car, if the wiring harness is bad that I need to cut, or just any kind of cable or rope or anything like that, these shears work very good. I'm sure I can cut plants, and there are other applications for them, but cutters. And these are just adjustable pliers. You know, it's kind of like channel locks. They just have two sizes, you know, and then you can grasp things like that. There are a few other types. I just couldn't put my hands on them. One would be side cutters, or people call them dikes, which is basically, if you could imagine the inside of that, it's a cutter, and it's just like that to the tip, and it's just used for cutting, you know, wires of various types of materials or whatever, mostly wires. And there's a couple others, but pliers, and again, it's job specific. You'll know what type of what type of plier you'll need when you get into it and you start using it, and be like, oh man. And you know, as you look on the internet, and you be like, oh, those are nice pliers, and just look at their uses, and you know, you'll buy them for your specific applications. But you should definitely have pliers in your toolbox. They make your life go much smoother, and again, they just add mechanical advantage that your little weak little meat mitts couldn't apply. So yeah, get you some pliers. Next up, I think we're gonna do miscellaneous tools. Everything else has pretty much been covered, so we'll be right back. All right, so this is kind of miscellaneous stuff that I feel like everyone kind of should have. So of course, well, first off, that's a hammer, obviously. Everyone kind of knows what a hammer is. It's not really miscellaneous. You know, it's pretty important and pretty pertinent, but it just didn't fit in the other category. So, you know, get you a good hammer. This is a dead blow hammer, so the head is filled with sand, and when you hit it, it doesn't really bounce. It's a very good hammer. It's actually a snap-on hammer, one of the oldest tools I got. But you know, it has a ball peen where you can, if you want, you can shape stuff with metal, and you know, the regular strike face with a hammer. Dead blow hammers are really good. Don't have to have it. Nothing wrong with just a regular hammer, but get you this type, and you know, like a sledgehammer or a couple other sizes of hammers. Hammers, the bigger the hammer, the you know, the more damage you'll do. So be careful using them. But definitely valuable to have. Next is the multimeter. You know, it's all spaghettified here, but multimeters are they are and they aren't basic, right? So everyone should have a multimeter, a good one. And this is a fluke, so this is like the Mercedes-Benz of multimeters. You should have one, and you should know how to use it, but they're kind of technical. So without going into too much of it, I would just say get one, read about it, watch some other YouTube videos on how to use them. But for, I mean, all kinds of stuff, multimeters, if you have one, you'll be happy. If you don't have one, you'll wish you had one. So get a decent one, learn how to use it, learn what all the symbols and magic characters mean, and you know, just learn how to use a good multimeter. They are, I mean, for safety's sake, because knowing where electricity is and where it isn't can be very vital to the continuance of your life. All right, so you know, we're talking about the test light. You can do a lot of things with a test light. You can attach this to ground, and then you can test for where power is, because basically this just completes a circuit and lights up the bulb. Or you can connect this to a power source and test for where your grounds are. You can test it if your grounds are actually producing good ground and things like that. I wouldn't use this for the 120 coming out of your house. I'm not sure if it's rated for it or not. That'd be more something for the multimeter, but still a very versatile tool, especially for cars. You can test fuses and stuff like that, you know, while they're plugged in. Very useful. They're cheap too, so you know, why not have one? Then of course is the old trusty tape measure. You know, everyone's seen them. You know, you snap it, it's cool, whatever. You know, this one is in feet and metric, and millimeters or meters, and you know, you can eyeball sizes and stuff like that, but it's always better to know and be precise when you're working with, who knows, you need to see if your refrigerator fit, or, you're cutting wood for a project or whatever. It's always good to know exactly how far a distance is, and you can do that simply with a tape measure. Razor blades and knives. You should always have a good knife. We'll get into weapons and EDCs and stuff like that later. This is like a X-Acto knife, or razor blade. This is really just a razor blade. And it has the breakable one, so when this one dulls out or chips or whatever, you can just snap it off. It's very sharp, so be careful, but very handy. You'll always need to cut something. So always have a good knife, or a sharp implement that you can cut stuff with. And always make sure it's really sharp. People think, oh, the sharper the scarier, but there's nothing, to me, more scarier than a dull blade, because what'll happen is you'll be cutting on something and it'll take so much effort to get through it, it'll cut, and then it'll go, your hand, just by the momentum and the pressure you have in it, it'll go flying off and end up cutting something that's that you weren't intending to cut, and usually that's yourself. So make sure your knives are sharp. The easier it can cut through, the more control you can have over it, and you don't have to put a whole bunch of muscle into it. All right, so this is an Allen key, and they come in they come in sets. You can get them in sockets, and you can get them in all kinds of stuff if you really want to get fancy. But just having a good set of Allen keys, man, is super important. Like these tools come with all the IKEA furniture and stuff like that, and using one like this, while it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. If you have your own set, or if you have a set that can attach to sockets and then power tools and stuff like that, it'll make the job easier. But at bare minimum, you want to have yourself a good set, because the ones that come in those kits, man, they're not that good. And just having your own set will be much better, and it's a more quality product, and it's more precise, and it'll just make stuff go easier. You won't be rounding as many fasteners and stuff like that. It's never a good idea. All right, so this is a very cheap but very useful tool. So this is an OBD2 Bluetooth adapter, right? So this is the connector to your car. This is the same thing. You take it to AutoZone or Advanced or whatever, and they plug in your car and tell you, oh, your O2 sensor's bad. Well, you can get these online for cheap, and you can do it in your driveway. I have this one. It connects to an app on my phone, and I just plug it in, and this doesn't exactly always just tell you like, oh, well, this is bad, replace that part, but it helps in the diagnostic process. And while this is a bit more on the technical side, and that's why it's in the miscellaneous and kind of, have one or not, it can help you. And I mean, just know, maybe your shop told you one thing, and you plug this in and it's like, well, that's not what you told me. Or you get some information, and you can help better explain to the shop or whatever when you take it in, like, hey, I have these codes or whatever. And you can also use this to help clear the codes after you either do repair yourself or whatever. You can use to clear the codes. And if you get some of the more fancier ones, it has certain tests and other parameters that you can access through here. But with all the computers and electronics, you definitely need at least a bare minimum to be able to see what the computer's saying, and to access the computers in your vehicle. So I would get one, do some research. This one, don't really get the one I got. I've had this one for years, but it works for me. But do some research. There's some really great ones out on the market that you can get, and it just gives you more ability and more versatility. So there's that. All right, this is a camera. Actually, it's a little bore scope and bore camera. Where's the end here? Oh, so you can plug this into your phone. It has the Type-C and USB, and it's just a camera. And this camera has, if it will focus, has little LED lights, and you can get this into spaces you would never be able to get any other type of camera. Down your sink drain. I use this on my firearms when I'm looking in there to see what the barrel's looking like or whatever, or stuck casing in there I've had sometimes, or I've had to do some work under the dash. all that stuff. Having a good bore camera, a bore snake camera is, oh man, it makes your life so much better when you can get your eyes on something and actually see what's going on in there, and see, is this leaking, is this is there a hole in this thing, like what's going on in there, what's up. So being able to see is imperative. Man, imagine having to walk around with your eyes closed all the time versus not. All right, so this is a purely automotive tool. This is for pushing brake pad, brake caliper pistons back in, right? So you put this on a brake pad, you put this in the caliper, and then you twist and you push the caliper piston back in to open it up to be able to give you the clearance to fit the new pistons in. This is really a specialty tool. But it is, oh man, it is so useful if you're doing your own brakes. And I'll do a video about how to change brakes here soon, and I'll show you exactly how this tool. I saw it, so I grabbed it. I was like, yeah, it's so cheap and it's so useful that you should definitely have it. Brushes. You always are going to be cleaning something off, whether you're welding or you're just working on something. The cleaner it is, the better glue's attached, the better you can weld, the better you can do all kinds of stuff, the better you can see cracks and damage and all that. So having good, and this one, it looks like a regular toothbrush, but you would not want to brush your teeth because these are metal bristles. So you definitely would want to have a good brush to be able to clean off rust and debris and all that other stuff. And then actually I do use old toothbrushes as well when I'm cleaning stuff up. So yeah, so these are all the hand tools. I'll probably do another video on the power tools and the stuff that uses electricity, because this video is probably getting kind of long. So but yeah, these are I think if you get at least most of the stuff in this video, you'd be set up pretty good as far as tackling projects around the house, or doing simple maintenance on your car, or whatever. YouTube is a good it's a library of knowledge, and it's a good resource to use if you want to get into this stuff. So I figured I would just make this video for simple terminology purposes and getting you some exposure to some of these tools and what's out here. So continue on. This is by no means an exhaustive video on everything you need, but this will help get you pointed in the right direction. So I hope this helps somebody, and thank you for watching, and y'all have a good day, and get your hands out there and get active on some stuff. All right, have a good one.